They've seemed to have just taken people's money. They've taken my money.
Right.
I'm kind of pretty annoyed about that. Okay, I came all the way from London, to try and get my bitcoins from you to find out what's happening.
No problem with Bitcoin. You can't do anything right now.
No, you can give people their bitcoins back if you wanted to. If you wanted to, you give me mine back right now.
No, I can't right now find Bitcoin.
You can?
It's different, but it's very pretty out here. I believe they're setting up the flag now.
Police in Japan have arrested Mark Capellas, the CEO of a failed Bitcoin company, over massive losses.
So Mark Karpellis ran Mt.GOX'D, which was at the time the world's largest exchange for Bitcoin, and basically got it for nothing from another guy online in exchange for some return if they ever made money. And the crazy thing was that they ended up making, he ended up making a lot of money on that site, and at one point they were trading like $4 million a month.
They became the biggest exchange for Bitcoin in the world.
Mt.GOX'D was very well known, also became very controversial. There were a series of high-profile hacks. And then what finally happened is that there was reported loss of over $500 million worth of Bitcoin, and that's the story that I went to explore.
A setback for the legitimacy of Bitcoin. Tokyo-based Mt.GOX'D, a major Bitcoin exchange, has gone bust, secretly racking up $350 million in losses related to the virtual currency. The company's website is down, its CEO has resigned, and investors are picketing outside its offices. Colin Burgess came from London hoping to recoup $320,000 he had tied up in Bitcoins.
I'm both annoyed and worried. It seems that I've lost all of my money, and I'm annoyed that the company has been stringing people along for so long, claiming that everything has been okay.
Documents said to be leaked from the company, an 11-page crisis strategy draft laying out the scale of the problem, 740,000 Bitcoins missing. Bitcoin started in 2009 as a currency free from government controls, winning over an eclectic mix of users, including libertarians, tech enthusiasts, and adventurous investors. But analysts say in order to build confidence in the virtual currency, that structure could soon change.
Probably some form of partnership will be needed, both with government and probably with financial institutions that have the gravitas to both build the network and provide some assurance in the small cases of foul play.
But Mt.GOX'D's demise could also drag Bitcoin down with it, as growing skepticism of the currency, which has already been linked to illegal activity, increases.
Je peux pas imaginer une vie sans ordinateur là actuellement, c'est impossible.
You go and visit him, you find him in his Tokyo apartment. Obviously he's been arrested once. Yeah. Another arrest is looming, investigations, lawsuits, etc. And you find him at home baking. Describe the scene at his house.
I went to his place and he had a train track. He was into model trains and he was kind of dismantling this from his table so that he could bake apple quiche. The guy's so serious about his apple quiche that there's old video on YouTube of him demonstrating how to cook this apple quiche.
Notre tarte est maintenant prête.
This is a person who's arguably moving some $500 million at some point.
Yes.
It's sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars at the very least, and he's obsessing about apple quiche.
Yes, but in a way, I mean, that kind of spoke to his character. I mean, I don't know, you try to put yourself in the shoes of these people, and just imagine you take over something that started out, I mean, the site really started out as a place for people to trade Magic the Gathering, trading cards. And, it's almost like someone says, here's my baseball card collection, why don't you sell them on the corner? And the next thing you know, you've got, traffic jams and people lining up and mobsters and everybody wants the cards and the money. And he was now in the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg TV is coming to interview him, and suddenly he's like, the Wolf of Wall Street in a way. And he was ill prepared.
Is he in denial?
I don't know. I mean, he seemed, he definitely was a little worried about what was going to happen, but he kept maintaining his innocence. And he said, look, I know what I did. There were times, certainly, when we left the apartment and we'd be walking around I mean, there was a sense of him still looking over his shoulder to some degree.
Is he famous in Japan? Do people know who he is?
Yes.
He's almost a mini celebrity.
Yes, he is a celebrity. In fact, we went out one time and it was clear that people knew who he was because he was, this was big news there. I mean, not only was it the biggest heist kind of ever online, it was one of the biggest heists really of our time.
Definitely something went wrong. The benefit of Bitcoin, however, though, is that there is no single point of failure. So we are able to move beyond anything that occurs without overall having an effect, a dramatic effect on the larger ecosystem. I want to point out, though, that Mt.GOX'D problems were not related to the Bitcoin protocol. They were related to a customized, specific implementation of the Bitcoin protocol, which in effect was their version, which caused them probably the trouble rather than the Bitcoin protocol itself. Well, Bitcoin as a protocol itself wouldn't need it is impossible to regulate. We'll always be able to hold and send Bitcoin within the Bitcoin network. The endpoints, however, where you exchange into national government currencies, fiat currencies, those will be the targeted points of regulation. I don't think that we should cave in and capitulate to the chorus calls for regulation or the urge for more regulation around consumer protection. Bitcoin is still experimental software. We don't need specific regulation for our specific industry. We're at version 0.8, and there are other sound methods to verify funds that are on deposit at exchanges, such as proof of reserves is an interesting concept that we can move forward into the exchange system. But overall, these are not intended to be banks, and we have to remember that. This is a lesson not just for MT.GOX'D exchanges, but for any exchange. Bitcoin traders, Bitcoin consumers, Bitcoin merchants don't have a need to keep their Bitcoin and assets on deposit with an exchange. We shouldn't be treating these exchanges like banks. You're perfectly capable with the Bitcoin protocol to maintain full control and custody of your balances on your own, in your own cold storage, on your own laptop, on your own mobile device. When you introduce third-party intermediaries into it, undoubtedly you're always introducing that trust element.
If someone came along and offered you 75% for the Bitcoins you have at Mt.GOX'D now, would you take it?
It's a very tough question. Of course, if I know that they're not going to be there, then of course I would. My hope is that they are there, and I'm here today to get answers. I want to know, are these coins going to be safe?
What do you want GOX'D to say to you?
I want GOX'D to say they have all, sufficient funds, that the funds, the Bitcoins, the fiat currency is safe, and that they have technical problems, and it's going to take some time to work out. That's fine, I can be patient. I just want to know, I want to have a statement. I would prefer, ideally, a statement saying that my personal account has this many. Right now I've got a screenshot or CSV file of something that's, questionably holding weight in a court. I want something that's legally binding that says I do have this many funds.
So Colin, there's been a bit of trading activity on Mt.GOX'D this morning. The price went up by about $100. It's still 50% less than everywhere else, but it shows people are still buying.
It does. I think it just keeps fluctuating up and down.
Right.
You can't really guess what's going on there. If people are suddenly panicking and then less panicking, or if there's some news that's come out that's moving up and down, or maybe someone somewhere is manipulating the price by potentially with rumours. I'm not saying that they are.
Right. And have GOX'D come and offered you any kind of official settlement yet?
No. So I've had a degree of contact, but there's not any. There doesn't seem to be any commitment or any kind of hope that they'll sort anything out anytime soon.
How much longer are you here for?
As long as it takes.
Right.
My Bitcoins weren't coming out of MT.GOX'D. I put them in for 3 days, tried to withdraw them, couldn't get them out.
Colin Burgess is a former software developer who flew from London to Bitcoin exchange Mt.GOX'D in Tokyo to see if he could get his coins back or find out more information.
It was quite a lot of money and I didn't want to just sit back while it disappeared.
Colin and Aaron, a Tokyo resident who didn't want to use his last name, said they have hundreds of Bitcoins each in Mt.GOX'D and can't get them back. The protesters began their demonstrations last Friday and are demanding answers.
Mt.GOX'D is an exchange, so it's similar to a stock exchange or a forex exchange, where you put cash in and you can buy, in this case, Bitcoins. So normally you deposit cash and then you buy Bitcoins at the price you like, and you can withdraw those Bitcoins.
Mt.GOX'D suspended Bitcoin transfers on February 7th, citing a technical issue that could allow fraud. The move led to a plunge in the value of the digital currency, which touched a low of $110 on Thursday, well below the $565 on other exchanges. A notice on the Mt.GOX'D support site said the exchange has moved to a nearby office building. The move, along with security and technical challenges, has pushed back the exchange's progress on reinitiating Bitcoin withdrawals. The protesters said they intend to continue their curbside vigil until Mt.GOX'D gives them convincing answers.
A lot of my future is tied up in the money that's inside MT.GOX'D. If those coins disappear, I'll have to think more about bringing money in through other means.
Melissa Aparicio, San Francisco, IDG News Service.
Is Bitcoin on life support or just in need of a serious resuscitation? Mt.GOX'D, once the world's biggest Bitcoin exchange, abruptly ceased trading on Tuesday. Protesters gathered outside the exchange's Tokyo office asking where their money was. Mt.GOX'D responded to Reuters inquiries with this statement: "We are currently at a turning point for the business. I can't tell much more for now, as this also involves other parties." Bitcoin prices vary depending on the exchange, but the virtual currency has had a volatile ride to say the least and has plunged recently. But NYU professor Arun Sundararajan believes the issues are isolated but damaging.
When something like this happens on what used to be the largest exchange, investor faith in Bitcoin goes down, and this hurts Bitcoin investors around the world.
The Bitcoin Foundation said in a statement, Mt.GOX'D is one of several exchanges, and their exit, while unfortunate, opens a door of opportunity. This incident demonstrates the need for responsible individuals and members of the Bitcoin community to lead in providing reliable services. Professor Sundararajan says the speculative nature of Bitcoin is holding it back. It's seen more as a commodity than a currency.
I think that Bitcoin needs to get much more widespread acceptability before it starts to become a currency. I think the challenge that it's facing now, it's a wonderful technology, and I really like the fact that we've got a secure, anonymous digital currency for the first time. It's just that it's not filling a market need that most consumers have. I mean, if I look at the advances that PayPal has made, if I look at my credit cards, and for face-to-face transactions, I've got cash. And so Bitcoin doesn't have a niche that it has filled in legal commerce as yet.
As the value and reputation of Bitcoin has taken a beating, other virtual currency exchanges will be under pressure to step up transparency and disclosure, ultimately benefiting the growing business.
Any online exchange, it's too
So Colin, we just want to know, what is it that makes a man fly 12 hours from London on the spur of the moment and then brave Tokyo rush hour and stand in the snow outside the Mt.GOX'D office?
Well, they haven't answered anybody's support requests. They seem to have just taken people's money. They've taken my money.
Right.
I'm kind of pretty annoyed about that. So I thought I'd come here, try and find out what's going on, hopefully speak to the CEO or speak to someone who knows what they're doing.
Have you made any contact so far?
No, I went inside yesterday, asked to speak to him, was given a brush off, filled in a note, left a note there, but I don't expect to get anything back.
Really?
Yep.
So what's the next step after this?
Just take it, see how it goes. So I'll do this for a while, probably next week as well. see what happens, see what progress is made. I mean, there are a lot of things going on the internet, lots of news about the situation, so it depends on how the situation pans out.
All right.
Okay, I came all the way from London, to try and get my bitcoins from you to find out what's happening.
No problem with Bitcoin. You can't do anything right now.
No, you can give people their bitcoins back if you wanted to. If you wanted to, you could give me mine back right now.
No, I can't right now find
You can do that. You can do it right now.
Anything for 60% of it is issue at all.
I think you're not sure, is it? So do you still have the bitcoin? Do you still have everyone's bitcoins? Do you still have everyone's bitcoins?
I'm going to call the place.
Go for it. I'm not touching you. I haven't touched you. So I just have everyone's bitcoins. That was one.
How's that? Were you satisfied with the answer?
Well, how could I be satisfied with the answer, but...
Exactly.
Well, I'm glad that I saw him.
Yeah.
But I don't expect that their company's going to last much longer. I think it's about to collapse. And I expect that no one's going to get the money back, but we'll see.
We will. Thanks.
Okay.
MT.GOX'D 最近のビットコインの問題、かなり前から知ってたんじゃないですか。ビットコインコアデベロッパーの問題ではない。すぐに解決したべきだ。
In the wake of recent Mt.GOX'D developments, disgruntled trader Colin Burgess flew from London to Tokyo on Friday to confront the Japan-based company behind Mt.GOX'D, setting up protests outside their Tokyo office but receiving no answers. Mt.GOX'D's response came Saturday, announcing that they have implemented a solution to mitigate any further transaction malleability issues, followed by another announcement on Monday that users will soon be able to make withdrawals again. In similar news, fellow digital currency exchange Bitstamp announced Friday that it would resume Bitcoin withdrawals, which it did the following day, having developed a solution to thwart the same cyber attacks that had caused their own intermission. However, experts agree that a more comprehensive fix still needs to be implemented for the software used to interact with Bitcoin's core blockchain protocol code, known as the reference implementation. While that shouldn't take more than a week, Bitstamp and others in the Bitcoin community are confident that the core protocol remains sound in the meantime. After 6 months of exhaustive hearings, New York Superintendent of Financial Services Benjamin Lasky announced on Tuesday that they will likely have to proceed with issuing some form of specially tailored bit license to incorporate Bitcoin and other digital currencies into the current money transmitter regulations. This would make New York the first U.S. state to legislate these types of cryptocurrencies. In similar news, California State Assembly member Roger Dickinson introduced a new bill to the Senate Banking and Finance Committee just the previous week to legalize alternative and digital currencies in California when used for the purchase of goods and services or the transmission of payments. The Canadian government also announced Tuesday that they plan to toughen rules and regulations to address emerging risks, including virtual currencies such as Bitcoin, that threaten Canada's international leadership in the fight against money laundering and terrorist financing. Israeli regulators are still undecided about Bitcoin, but that hasn't stopped a new Bitcoin embassy from forming in Tel Aviv as a haven for new Bitcoin startups, which already totals over 24 around Israel, combining their strengths in high-tech fields like cryptography and fraud prevention. Silk Road 2 administrator DEFCON posted on Thursday that the reincarnated online black market was hacked and had 4,400 bitcoins emptied out of its escrow accounts worth roughly $2.6 million, DEFCON then followed up with another post Sunday promising to pay back all 2.6 million in Bitcoin stolen from their customers and vendors, pledging that this leadership and this community will not stop until you are completely repaid. In similar news, Kickstarter has issued their own apology after hackers acquired some of their users' personal information on Wednesday, including phone numbers, mailing addresses, email addresses, usernames, and encrypted passwords. However, CEO Yancey Strickler insisted that no credit card data of any kind was accessed by hackers, and that there was no unauthorized activity of any kind on all but 2 Kickstarter user accounts. Since the hack, the company has improved their security measures and are working with law enforcement closely. A new altcoin called Solar Coin has been created to promote the use of solar energy and will be earned by exchanging 1 solar coin for every megawatt hour of solar-powered electricity generated and put back into the grid. Another digital currency, No Fiat Coin, has emerged in Germany, this time backed by silver and gold coins as a more trustworthy, sophisticated version of e-gold. As founder Robert Reyes put it, if everything else collapses, precious metals will still have value, which is why we are different. No Fiat Coin can be bought with US dollars through Bitstamp or exchanged for Bitcoins through the Ripple open payment system. Then when you want to cash out, you'll be physically mailed the current value in silver and gold coins. The original creator of Mt.GOX'D, Jed McCaleb, has announced his next endeavor, inviting alpha testers to join him on a secret Bitcoin project. Quote, building something that will be better for Bitcoin and better for you. The little information currently available can be found at secretbitcoinproject.com.
One thing that's been a little surprising is that we haven't seen more people come out of the woodwork to say, I want my money back. Maybe they were using the money to do things that they shouldn't have been doing. I mean, you know, Mt.GOX'D was very kind of rose to prominence during the time that Silk Road rose to prominence. But then this was a whole nother part of the story where you had the investigators into Silk Road had an eye on Mark Karpelès, and it turns out they were actually exchanging some of the money. There were some corrupt bad cops who had stolen money during the Silk Road investigation who were exchanging it through Mt.GOX'D, and then they were going after Mt.GOX'D and Karpelès to try to shut it down, presumably to erase traces of their misdeeds. So again, you know, this is a character who just was in the middle of this crazy shootout in this Wild West.
If he's at the center of that and he's at home baking apple quiche trying to perfect his recipe, I mean, it seems like he's not.
Seems odd. Yeah, and he was sitting there at one point. I was interviewing him. He had his cat on his lap. He was talking about I'm not Dr. Evil. He was petting his cat on his lap, which he didn't see the irony of that. But I think this story is still unfolding to some degree. I mean, I've told the story, as close as we're going to get as to what happened from his point of view and a sense of who this guy actually is. But I think that the investigation is still shaking out. We're certainly going to find out more about what he did. We're going to see where he winds up, and we may find out what happened to that missing money. We may never find out.
Worried Bitcoin investors are converging on the Japan-based offices of Mt.GOX'D Bitcoin Exchange, hoping to get answers about their investments. Earlier in February, the best-known digital marketplace operator halted withdrawals indefinitely after detecting what they called unusual activity. This is the man they want answers from, Mt.GOX'D former CEO Mark Karpelès. One of the protesters filmed Karpelès entering the building just a week ago. This investor flew from London to find out what's happened to his $300,000 Bitcoin holdings.
I came because a lot of my money was tied up here and I wasn't getting any answers in the UK. They were not going to answer me my concerns. They weren't answering anybody. So I thought the only thing to do would be come out here and try and talk to the CEO personally.
Bitcoin exchanges allow users to convert their Bitcoins into US dollars and other currencies, but Mt.GOX'D's homepage wasn't loading. 6 other major Bitcoin exchanges have released a joint statement distancing themselves with Mt.GOX'D. Reuters interviewed Karpelès last year where he highlighted the risks of Bitcoin investment.
If you buy Bitcoin, you should buy with keeping in mind that the value could be zero the day after. For now, even if it shouldn't happen, there's still a chance it could happen.
With Bitcoin being vulnerable to technical issues and cyber attacks, the virtual currency isn't an investment for the faint-hearted. Something that these investors are finding out firsthand.
Okay, I came all the way from London, to try and get my Bitcoins from you to find out what's happening.
No problem with Bitcoin. You can't do anything right now.
No, you can give people their Bitcoins back if you wanted to. If you wanted to, give me mine back right now.
can't right now finance
You
Bitcoin.
can do that. You can do it right now.
Anything.